Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact podcast. This is the Coach's Corner edition with me, Coach Furtado, where in the Coach's Corner edition, I share the updates and wisdom that I am learning in my daily life every week here on Fridays, passing wisdom to you, coaches, parents, and youth leaders we want to transform the next generation by teaching leadership through athletics. So what better way than, sharing experience and collaborating. So our conversation today is on reflection. And before we dive into reflection, I want to shout out Mike Moe for giving us a review on Apple Podcasts. From now on out, if you go and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, we will go and shout you out here on the podcast and also in our newsletter. And let's dive right in, because I think reflection is a tool that has really helped me get to where I want to go as a leader. And I'm a big believer in being a lifelong learner. I'm always trying to read, listen to podcasts, and trying to become a better coach, better person, better leader, right? But, they say that experience is the greatest teacher. But there's actually a quote that says, experience is not the greatest teacher. Reflecting on experience is the greatest teacher. Because if we just go through the motions and go through our experience and we don't think about, what went well at the experience, what challenged us, how can we improve the next experience? Are we really growing? We might grow a little bit, but if we're really intentional about how we reflect, it's going to show up in our life. And I really want to talk about where I'm at right now in terms of a career. Is like I'm actually made a pretty I guess you could say sudden change in terms of what I want to do as a career, because I realized today is my last day with Royal Basketball School, and the reflection is a tool that has given me an opportunity to realize that one of my callings to be here on earth, that I genuinely believe, is to be a youth sports coach, not even necessarily a basketball coach, and to work with youth and impact youth through athletics. And one of the big things that I didn't really know that until Royal gave me that opportunity. And that's something that I am eternally grateful for, especially being here. When I moved to Los Angeles, I started working with Royal in about August. And, it was still a big city to me. I didn't like living here because it was, loud, noisy, dirty, you name it. And I was super uncomfortable. But the opportunity to work at Royal has given me, again, the opportunity to, work through things as a coach and to recognize, I obviously, for some of y'all that have been following me for a minute, I've been, I've worked at Boys and Girls Club. It's my big background. That's actually how I got into basketball coaching. It's where I taught my first basketball program. And so I had a lot of experience working with youth. So the working with youth side of things, I knew, and I'd coach a couple of years for a middle school basketball team, but I didn't really think of anything of it. I kind of just thought, it was fun. And now I realize, with being in LA, and now I love being in LA, and being with Royal and connecting with so many great coaches gave me the opportunity to kind of create a home here. It also has helped me realize that, you can build a career actually out of being a basketball coach and building a basketball organization, which is, now what Bridging Impact is turning into, right? Bridging Impact. At first, I just wanted to pass leadership to after school leaders and teachers and youth sports coaches who work with kids. That way we can impact kids and teach leadership to them as well, because we have to first, I genuinely believe this. If you want to pass leadership to another person, you have to own leadership and take on self-leadership, lead by example first. So that's a big reason I wanted to start the podcast. And now, recognizing, I think about into June or July, especially in summer camps, I'm like, wow, I actually feel like we can create sort of a business model around this, whether we choose the nonprofit or the LLC route. That's still something that we're talking about internally, but that's a side note. Those are glimpses, but nonetheless, that I feel a calling to turn Bridging Impact into a youth athletics organization to transform leaders. And there's just not a lot of programs out there, and the tool of reflection has given me the opportunity to think about that. And so for you, I don't want to talk too much about myself, but I wanted to share a little bit of context into how reflection, because I journal every single night. And before I was journaling every single night, I was journaling in the mornings. And that gives me an opportunity to reflect on my day, what went well, what was challenging, and, what are the things that I actually genuinely need to improve on. And I call myself out sometimes if I'm not, staying up to my standard. and it's just a tool to develop self-awareness. You can't make, I genuinely don't think you can make improvements in one's life if you don't have the awareness on what to improve on. And so there's always things that I can improve on as a coach. And I just had a great podcast conversation that's going to come out at the end of the month, or Thanksgiving week, on communication. And so, I pride myself on being a great communicator, but that doesn't mean I can't not be a better communicator. And reflecting gives me the tool to be like, okay, what specific, measures of communication do I need to get better at? So for me, a lot of times the communication tactics that I need to get better at are, having challenging conversations without being, with basically increasing the intent and impacts. A lot of times we say things with the intention of, it being well, right? Or being received well. But then the impact actually is detrimental, whether you're talking to a significant other or someone on your, professional team. And that's something that, I want to continue to work on, is making sure that my intent and impact is actually matched. So diving into how we can, help you become and utilize reflection. First, I'd have to ask you, think about, how do you reflect naturally? Are you a journaler? Because I'm a big believer in journaling. And so if you want to build a journaling habit, you'd have to do it around the same time every single day. And there are so many great resources out there, and maybe we can put something together with Bridging Impact. If there's enough interest, you can let me know, reach out to me, and we can build some templates that you can go through in terms of for journaling. Because I know sometimes, I think the biggest thing that people have challenges with journaling is what do I write about every day, right? A lot of times I genuinely admit that a lot of times I talk about similar things every day, and it's kind of that monotony that actually helps me really focus in and hone in on certain skills to get better at. So journaling is a big one, but not everyone's a journaler. And I think reflecting can be literally just you going from, let's say you're going home from coaching and practice, and you build a habit of, okay, you ask yourself, okay, what went well? What do we need to still work on? And what challenged me? Or you can kind of choose those questions. But again, just getting curious and having conversations, internal dialogue with yourself. And it's not about being super hard about yourself, super hard on yourself. It's about being strategic around it, right? It's about being, how can we move forward? All right. Don't use reflection as a tool to dwell on the past, oh, I was so bad here, I'm never going to get better. It's, okay, what do I need to improve on, and how can I do that in the future, right? That is the tool of reflection at its best. And so you can also do it with another person, right? If you got a team of coaches, reflect on, at the end of the day, what went well, right? Again, I'm being pretty repetitive in what we're talking about, but what players were outstanding today? What players showed great leadership? How can we recognize them better, right? Those are the kind of questions that we need to be having with our teams and with our staff, and then we need to pass that on. We need to teach youth how to reflect at a younger age, right? And this age group, a lot of them have pretty great critical thinking skills because of their access to their information. However, one of the things that this group is going to be, Gen Z in general, is going to be challenged with, is they base a lot of their worth on external validation, and reflecting can start giving them that tool, that internal tool, to start giving themselves validation. Oh, okay, I actually did do really well in practice today, right? Even though maybe I didn't get 20 likes on my Instagram or whatever it is, right? And reflection can help develop that internal motivation and intrinsic motivation, because we are battling with this generation of kids, and it's hard. I couldn't even imagine what it's like to, number one, figure out who you are in the world while you're also being externally validated by so many different outside sources. And yeah, you can make sure that kids aren't on social media, but that's just not realistic, right? So we have to really help them develop their own intrinsic and internal motivation through reflection, and help them understand, hey, don't say you suck, right? Again, be specific. And how can you get better, right? And a big thing is, one of the things I'm realizing as a coach, and obviously don't take this out of context, but you are like a doctor, not in terms of health, but you have to understand, for a player or for a team, there are going to be priorities on what the team needs to get better first, right? So if someone comes into the hospital, it's called a triage, and they have to treat the biggest wounds first. And so as a coach, it's your job to help the players reflect on what they need to work on most first. There's always things to work on, but we need to, help them prioritize. So that's my big reason why I love reflection. And I really believe that reflection has helped me become the person who I am today, who I feel like I'm light years above 24 years old. Maybe I do act like a 45, 50-year-old man, but I also feel like it's because I've really had a lot of privilege to have a lot of great experience, but I've also leveraged those experiences and reflected on them and tried to really utilize them to become a better coach and better leader. And I'm always going to be striving to be a better leader. So with that said, would love if you would obviously give this a like if you're watching this on YouTube, share it with a friend, make sure you're subscribed on the podcast, whether it's YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google, or Spotify, and leave a review so we can shout you out next week. Also, I have to let you know, if you listen to this right now here on Friday, November 4th, you have until Sunday to get our merch. That's 20% off. If you use the code BI capital fall, capital S sale, BI fall sale, you can get 20% off all of our merch. We're trying to get it, grow the brand. We're going to transform the next generation by teaching leadership through athletics. I appreciate you all. Have a wonderful weekend. And Coach Furtado will be in your eyes and ears next week. Cheers, y'all.